Thank you. John Smith is actively involved in doing some positive things. John is working with us on the One Message, One Voice campaign. He's part of the We Care Partners Board of Directors, and he's also an advocate in relationship to making sure that positive things happen for people in our community. John, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Is it on? Oh, okay. We'll cut that part. Is it on? Most of the things that I could say in reference to health care and public safety have already been said by two outstanding spokespersons, the mayor and pastor. But just let me say a few things about, violence not only is a major health issue. Violence affects your mental ability. If you're afraid to shop where you live, to go to the bus stop where you live, that's a psychological mental health disability. It could lead to a disability. Violence also affects who lives where. None of us want to live in a crime-ridden neighborhood. And I think that's, most of us have been working all our lives. I know I've had a job since I was, and I'm 60. I've had a job since I was 14, and I've worked continuously since I was 14 years old. My wife said to me, she said, "You told me when you retired from the city of Newark that you was going to have some time." I said, if people like her wouldn't call so much, and the NAACP, and all those persons that Miss Witchett knows, that call her constantly and call me and call Pastor Rutherford and call the mayor and call Herb also. We could get some rest time, but and we talk about the same things when we talk about things. The mayor talked about the program started at the University of Chicago, and the University of Chicago would be the place where something like this would start, because we know this. The School of Sociology started it at the University of Chicago, the first school of sociology. And we know that sociology, one of the things the study of sociology does is study group behavior. So it would be natural that, something like that would start at the University of Chicago. In the program that the mayor is promoting, one of the things, and when I was looking at the poster, one of the things that stuck out to me most prevalent was courtesy. If we could just be courteous to each other, like Pastor Rutherford, I too grew up in the South, and everybody who was an adult, if you were a child, was Mr. or Miss. Every adult was Mr. or Miss. And now being an educator, in my second career, and I tell my young students, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Excuse me, may I, please," and saying "Miss," opening a door. If you bumps, I've known in working for the city of Newark for in excess of 25 years as a police officer, and most of those years as an investigator, I've known people in this neighborhood where we're standing now to lose their lives because they bumped someone on the street. They bumped someone and didn't say, "Excuse me." Lost their lives. And I've gone to the area, and and said to the person, you know, who did it? And they would tell me, you know, around the corner. The mayor also talked about, you know, who we can go to in our neighborhoods. There are several problems, I think, with public safety in urban communities now. When I came into public safety police in 1974, most of the majority of the African American police officers lived in the neighborhood where they policed. Now, in most of our urban areas, we're dealing with third-generation police officers. Their grandfather was a police officer who grew up in Irvington, who lived in Irvington. Their father was a police officer who grew up in Irvington, probably went to Irvington High School, but at that time, the family was starting to migrate out. Now the son was born and raised in Bergen County, went to grade school in Bergen County or Morris County. Now they want to come back to the municipalities because this is where the job market is. Right. 10 people using the same address, you know, but the police officers doing, when the mayor was growing up in Newark, could talk to the community because they lived there. They lived next door to the mayor. They could, if Wayne did something wrong, the police officers knew his parents, and that's major. I know that being a former high school basketball coach here in the city of Newark, and working at 1 Lincoln Avenue and standing outside, being a juvenile officer, I could stand outside of 1 Lincoln Avenue and see the students going to Barringer High School and tell who was not going to graduate high school. Because there was no books, there was no pencil or paper, there was no book bag, there was just some expensive sneakers and an expensive leather coat that their parents had bought them with nothing, and they would go into school. And I would go to graduation, and sure enough, they were great athletes, but they didn't understand that when I took them to those basketball camps in Bergen County and Morris County, the first thing that coaches who were college recruiting would ask me was, how are the grades? What's their GPA? What kind of student is he? You know, it didn't matter that you were a great athlete, that you were excelled in one of the major sports in our high schools. What type of student? Is this student coachable? And can he pass an exam that's going to be given by a professor? Now I'm in higher ed, and I get the students coming from Irvington High and from the various high schools throughout the state of New Jersey. Being at Essex County College, the tuition is lower, so parents know that you can come to a two-year school in the state of New Jersey now and get a lower tuition before you have to pay that astronomical Seton Hall tuition like I paid. But we must practice and be cognizant of unifying. I go to a lot of meetings, and I was at a meeting the other night at the International Youth Organization. And the reason that we don't have the right persons in place like a Mayor Smith to make decisions is because we don't vote. We are just not voters. And I see the young people, they talk about everything but voting. If you don't vote in America, you don't count. I vote in every election. You know, my children didn't go to public schools, but I have never missed voting in a school election since we started electing school board members, because it's important to me. Those persons that we elect make decisions that affects our health, our public safety, even if you don't vote for them. And that's what we have to get our young people to understand. Voting. If you don't vote in America, you don't count. You can advocate, you can be the greatest advocate in the world, but elected officials and decision makers look at votes. If persons are voting in your neighborhood is going to get services. They're not going into the neighborhood to talk about closing libraries anywhere where persons vote on a consistent basis. They can talk about closing our libraries because we know that they're only going to be the persons who are advocating, who knows the value of education, to talk about the closing of libraries. But the persons who really should be talking about non-closing of libraries are not going to be there. The Kathleen Witches could be at home, in her air-conditioned home, being comfortable, but she's going to be the one that's talking about the closing of libraries. The third-generation police officers, young persons. I think that when we were growing up, Mayor and Pastor, our parents not only wanted us in the house because we could get into some devilment, as they would say, they wanted us because being out after dark, you could be a victim. You could be a victim of, and we know that when, people do things because they think that darkness hides criminality. So they wanted you in the house so they could watch after you after dark. Herb, thanks for getting us together to talk about health alternatives. It's very important. Most of us in here have health care insurance. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, thank God. Used to be free, now it's 80-20. Well, thank God it's not 2080. Yeah. But I hope that we continue to do things like this in our community and tie health alternatives into voting alternatives and advocacy and alternatives offered to the community at large to get involved in things that's going to benefit all of us. Thank you, Herb, and thank you, audience, for hearing me.